Our next session brings us back to the foundation of agriculture itself, the soil. As producers face increasing pressure from water constraints, input costs, and environmental demands, there's growing recognition that long-term productivity starts below the surface. Improving soil health is not just about sustainability, it's about resilience, efficiency, and of course, ultimately, profitability for farmers.
We're pleased to welcome Jonah Parker, Vice President of Sales and Grower Relations at MyLand, a company at the forefront of biological soil health innovation. Jonah brings more than 2 decades of experience working directly with growers, helping them adopt practical, results-driven solutions that enhance productivity without disrupting their operations. Through MyLand's microalgae-based soil as a service platform, he's helped expand adoption across tens of thousands of acres, delivering measurable gains in yield, water efficiency, that seems to be a common thread, and crop quality. His work, including partnerships with Texas A&M AgriLife, reflects a deep commitment to helping farmers rebuild the biology of their soil in ways that make both environmental and economic sense. Please welcome Jonah Parker.
What a blessing it is to be here. TDA, Commissioner Miller, thank you guys so much for having me. And then what a warm introduction there. I was just sharing with Bob and Kelly a second ago that my mom cried on their last episode. So. It's been a part of our family, Texas Country Reporter. So what an honor it is to be here. I mean, if you guys can, if you could bottle up the trust that the farming community have in you guys, like you could sell that for a lot of money. So yeah, just for the record. Happy to be here today. I'll go through this quick. Essentially, MyLand is, you just heard kind of from them, it's at the forefront of trying to help rebuild soil biology and what's going on beneath our feet. So you'll hear me talk a little bit in just a second about the chemical, the physical, and biological structures of the soil. And as farmers, I'm a farm kid from Northeast Texas, Mount Pleasant, about 115 miles east of here. We never really thought about the biological side. It was the chemical and the physical side of the soil, and that's what we focused on, oftentimes to the detriment of the biology. What we've learned over these last 10 or 15 years is the biology is hyper important to what's going on, and actually has the ability to change both the chemical and the physical structures going on in the soil. So that's a pretty overarching statement of what we'll be talking about here today. 33% of soils, they say, across the world are degrading. I'm out talking to farmers every day. I was actually in Dalhart just last week and meeting with some onion and pumpkin growers up there in Dalhart. And like, it's a common theme everywhere I go. People will say, my soil is tired. And what that really means is that it's lacking life. And it's lacking biology. So you see it kind of everywhere throughout agriculture. And then 70%, we've heard it everywhere, sounds like, throughout the day. Water scarcity, won't talk too much about it. But then an interesting one too, declining nutrition. So as the nutrients go down and life goes down in the soil, the food that we're consuming is less nutritious. And I don't think I have to tell anybody that here. You kind of know what's going on. So what's MyLand's solution for that? We're trying to transform soil health, one farm at a time. And we're trying to do it like at scale on the farm. So the focus is helping to build strength and resiliency beneath the surface, laying a foundation for greater productivity, increased economic security, and obviously, hopefully, for the farmers, increased profitability. So everything we're doing is trying to focus on healthy soils, because we believe healthy soils lead to healthier food, healthier people, and a healthier planet ultimately. And I guess really quick, one back, the pictures there are some pictures of our systems kind of there on farm, and we'll talk through those in a second. So how do we do that? Microalgae. So I was just hearing the guys a second ago, some of their products were talking about killing algae, which is fine when you do that, and a lot of the water sources and waters that we need to move around, it can be pretty detrimental. Oftentimes, especially filamentous algae that strings together, can be very detrimental to our water structures and our water systems. However, a lot of people don't realize this. I didn't even know it. I'm ashamed to say, until I started, getting educated. Early days of my land, without algae and microalgae, we probably wouldn't be here, because it's the building block of all of life. So everybody talks about food chains and everything else. Like the base of the base of the base of the base of the food chains is microalgae. So it's the only microbe in the soil that's not consuming other microbes, but its purpose in life is to live, die, and be a food source for the bacteria, fungi, protozoans in the soil that are doing the job of nutrient and carbon cycling for us, for the plants to survive. And so if the plants weren't there, then we wouldn't be there, obviously. But that's their kind of sole role in the soil. It's easy to visualize in water, and you think about algae and feeding fish and the larvae and then ultimately then feeding fish, and it kind of being the base of the food chain. You see it in your swimming pool if your pump goes out like mine did just last week while I was out of town. Came home, had a green swimming pool. It's the base of life, so it's the first thing that starts growing in your pool, right? And so that's what we're focused on. We're focused on feeding the microbial food chain so that those populations increase and can get up and do their jobs. So the leading indicator of soil health is a healthy and robust microbiome in the soil. So what is Mylan doing about that? So we're taking microalgae essentially and implementing the Mylan process. So we take soil samples, we extract soil samples, and we find the live native microalgae. We produce them in mass quantities on the field, and then we deliver them to the soil on a continuous basis to the irrigation systems on the farm. And then we have a service model. So we're actually not bottling anything up. We're not selling any products. We're a service. We do all of this as a service under a service agreement with the farmers. So essentially we're kind of installing little mini manufacturing facilities on the farm at the irrigation point, and then growing their algae that's native to their farm on site, and then directly injecting it back into their irrigation system. And all of that equals scalable soil health, right? So it's actually a turnkey operation. The growers farmers don't have to really do anything. That's the responsibility of our service team and service technicians. So what's the Mylan process? I started to get into that a second ago and then realized the slide's here. So step one, we go out to the farm, we take a soil sample on the farm, we send that back to our algae lab. That's actually our headquarters is in Phoenix, Arizona. Actually, our largest state is Texas, second largest is California, but our home office we were started in Phoenix, Arizona. And so we send those back there. We have algae scientists that are there. They look for algae with specific characteristics, not necessarily specific strains of algae, but algae with some specific characteristics. They find those, select the optimal strains, and then begin to scale those up in our lab. Get them to about a little 2-liter carboy, they call it, and send that out to the farm. While that's happening, that's about a 60-day process. While that's happening, we install the systems that you guys saw a second ago on the farm and integrate them into the farm. That allows us to then kind of inoculate those systems with that algae that's sent out in those little 2-liter carboys. And then that starts the process of the live native algae being introduced to the farm. And then step 4, we monitor all of those systems. Every system has a Starlink to it, so we're actually able to control it remotely back in our headquarters in Arizona, or within our field sales teams that are there on the farms as well, taking care of it. But all can be done remotely, so we know what's going on and system uptimes and all those things. And then step 5 is continuous soil health monitoring. So we do tests early season, mid-season, and then into season to kind of show what's going on within the soil and work with the growers. So why are we doing all of this? Again, we started talking a little while ago about all of the challenges that farmers have, and it's really just a degenerative soil cycle, right? The plow was one of the single most greatest inventions to ever exist, right? We all learned about it in school, and it's amazing. It can help change the physical structures of the soil. It actually is a great sterilant as well. Anything that it turns over and exposes to the sun is going to die, right? So that happens. But the chemical fertilizers and just chemistries that we have to put out. At MyLand, we say we're not anti anything. We're pro-life in the soil. We're just trying to help grow the native microbial community that's there in the soil, because it's going to do the jobs that it needs to do. So we're not anti-fertilizer, we're not anti-chemical. Those are necessary things for growth and can help if done correctly. But oftentimes, we can over-apply. So more fertilizers and chemicals lead to a loss of organics and carbon, which can lead to soil compaction, reduced porosity, higher salinity, more prone to pests and climates, so less resilient plants. Then that comes to more tillage, higher water usage, lower yields, and then ultimately kind of lower land values, and then you just go into this degenerative cycle, and it can be a downward spiral, and that's what a lot of the farmers feel. And that's what they mean. Whenever earlier in the presentation they said their soil's tired. That's what they mean. So how do we change that? So again, I told you we address the biological structure in the soil and help to change the chemical and the physical structures of the soil through biology. So we introduce the microalgae to the fields. We have increased microbial diversity and count because of that, because it has a food source. They get up, they recognize it, they do their jobs. It's a native food source because it came from the farm. It increases organic matter, aggregation, and porosity in the soil. When that happens, think about a sponge. Why does a sponge hold water? There's a ton of different caves and cavities that are there inside the sponge. Same thing happens within the soil. If that's compact, water will either stand on top of it or run off. We want it absorbing and holding on into that root system. Higher nutrient availabilities, improved water infiltration, reduced water use. Reduced inputs and plant stress can obviously create a better functioning soil, better yield and quality, and then ultimately increase land value. So that degenerative cycle, we try to turn it into a regenerative cycle, hence the term regenerative agriculture. So I'm going to show a quick video here that will demonstrate kind of some systems, and this is in Arizona, but we have all of these programs also going on in Texas.
Agriculture accounts for roughly 75% of all water use in Arizona. MyLand's a soil health company. Our soil as a service model utilizes live native microalgae to help increase soil health, influence biological, chemical, and physical changes in the soil. These changes influence the soil's ability to hold and utilize water, driving both productivity and sustainability.
These sensors are essentially measuring how much water vapor and CO2 is the wind carrying. And as it goes over your crop, it's interacting with the crop. We're getting how much evapotranspiration, how much water loss that particular crop is leading into the atmosphere.
We've got growers that have documented a 15% water savings in alfalfa, an increase in a half day between irrigation cycles in peppers, and an increase of 24% water use efficiency in tree nuts.
The real deal was taking algae locally, your own algae in your own soil, and building it. We were blessed enough to get the WIFA grant to get 2 units. We got one here and one over at the other field. I can tell you already, we can see a difference.
I think the simplest way to look at it is that algae is indirectly and directly increasing the structure of your soil. Algae and microbes themselves create glue-like substances that bind soil particles together. That creates aggregation. When that happens, you have more pore space for water, for more microbes, for more nutrients, and then because of that, you start getting more pore space and more aggregation as it goes down the line.
We've kind of been doing the same stuff for quite a while, and I think now we're kind of at the forefront of a lot of developing technologies that are going to come, and I think they're going to have a big impact on water, and this one definitely does that.
Awesome. So I wanted you guys to get a visual and kind of on farm what it actually looks like. So that's it. These next few slides here are really just some I guess results that we have seen in the fields and with you know, specific, again, either chemical or physical changes in the soil that's led to you know, to changes for the crops and for the farmers. So I'm not going to go through each individual number, but each one of these numbers represents a farm that's had studies done on it, either through us or in partnership. Like you heard WIFA, which is the water board there in Arizona. We've got the partnership with Texas A&M AgriLife Research here. We're blessed to get a grant through the Texas State Legislature this past cycle that's helped us introduce this technology to a lot of the growers across Texas, and we're actually on about 22,000 acres now throughout the state of Texas. So from, you just heard me a little while ago, from Dalhart all the way down to Brownsville. We're actually even on the other side of the border wall on the farm where President Trump actually signed the wall down down just south of San Juan, south of Donna. So anyway, we're big presence here, and these are all some things that we've seen. So we see the leading indicators of water of water conservation happening, and then we actually have seen that actualize, being able to save water there. So there's that. You see the actual water conservation. All these things are really important. Even it's hard for some people to understand, but a half day time between cycles is a really big deal. So those half days add up, you know, a lot, and you can't quantify those because they don't have a meter necessarily going out in that situation, but you can quantify it based off the number of days that they're irrigating and they're not. Organic carbon, so that organic carbon is a percentage of organic matter. That's the stuff that the plants really love and need in order to thrive in the soil. So big increases in organic carbon. It actually is an organic carbon source that we're applying. So I've heard several people talk about carbon credits and those things. There's some of our growers that do take advantage of that. We are an approved practice by a lot of the certifiers, and some of our farmers are able to take advantage of that. But consistently over and over through the soil health tests that you see, we're able to see total organic carbon increase. Salt reduction in the soil. So every time we apply something to the soil, we're adding salt to it. So we've been able to see significant salt reductions. We don't necessarily believe that the chemistry is changing and that the salt just goes away, but a lot of times it suppresses and goes out of the root zone. And so that's where it matters for farmers and for plants, frankly, right? And then nutrient density in food, we talked a lot about that. Growers get pretty excited about this because they start getting premiums from retailers, and whenever you can have a Wiggins watermelon and it tastes a little bit different than than another watermelon, then they like that a lot. And then just a couple of grower success stories here. It's the top one is Will Beckwith. He's a young farmer down in the Rio Grande Valley, and then Marvin John. He was our first grower, alfalfa grower out in Arizona, and he sold me on the idea and coming to work at the company. Him personally, he literally reached his hand down in the soil in Arizona and pulled out an earthworm. And he's like it was the craziest thing, and that's what got me to join up and kind of give the best years of my professional career to try to move this forward. So, with that, I'm going to close it up and then open it up to any questions that the group might have. Yes, sir. Yeah, great question. Tremendous challenges. So I would say, like when you scale anything, like part of scaling is consistency, right? Like being able to replicate at different times. No two farms are alike. Like even within like the farmers have a pivot here and a pivot here, and they're different. Either the equipment's different on the pivot, the water that they're getting out of the ground, even though it's a quarter mile down the road, it has a different level of salinity with different things in it because it comes from a different level within the soil. So all of those factors kind of play into it. The algae that we isolate is all different. Each one, like we have a catalog, they're cryopreserved for every farm. So every one of those, every system is a little bit different. So that's one of our biggest challenges. And frankly, it's taken us 5 years to get to over 40,000 acres, but like we think that we can get to 80 and 100,000 within a couple of years here. We just from all of the learnings, because then you start to see some consistencies, and then you can identify patterns and those things. But that's probably been our biggest challenge is keeping the systems running perfectly because every one of them's a little bit different. Great question. Thank you. Yes, sir. We're not trying to replace anything. You will see the ability to reduce over time. One of the things that the algae actually does. So if you want to really nerd out, go to Dr. James White. He's a professor out of Rutgers University. I think he actually coined the term rhizophagy, the rhizophagy process. Essentially, that process is plants uptaking, actually ingesting microbes into their root structures. And oftentimes those microbes have chemicals inside of them, right? Like all living things do. And once they ingest kind of into the root structures, the plant can actually use O2, break down the cell wall, and take the nutrients that it needs at the time that it needs it, making those nutrients kind of available to the plant when it needs it, and then they can send that microbe back out. They don't always die. Like that's kind of the symbiotic relationship that they have, and then the plant gives that microorganism. It gives it nutrients and sugars oftentimes, and allows it to grow and sends it back out. So I think that was part of the question, maybe. I don't know if another part was what you asked, is it replacing compost teas and those things? I would say no. Oftentimes compost teas are looking to increase bacterias and fungi, depending on which type you're growing. You're trying to increase those populations. We're actually trying to be a food source for those populations in the soil. So once those populations are introduced into the soil, we're hoping that they can continue to sustain life. That it's not just a bioshot, if you will, into the soil, but that they can sustain life in the soil because they've got a food source and a loving home and food there in the soil. So does that answer your question? Okay, sure. Yes, sir. Great question. Our first application on pasture land is taking place starting next week, I believe, just north of Dumas with a dairy, very large dairy operation there. So they do, and that's one of the things we're hoping to see is they have to overgraze because they don't have enough land and they can't put enough water out to have adequate coverage for their dairy cows. So that's one of the things that we're hoping to see. How are you going to apply it? They do have irrigation there, so that's one of our challenges. But at this location, they do have pivot irrigation that we're able to use, and then they rotate the cows from paddock to paddock or pasture to pasture. Yes, ma'am. Great question. So I've always said I want to be fired from a farm. That would be ideal, right? Because they would have seen phenomenal increases. Their soil gets healthier, and we reach a plateau, right? That's the idea. We've been commercializing for 5 years right now, and we've slowed down, I would say, in a couple of areas. But then it all depends on it all depends on like what's going on with the farmer and with the weather and with the water, et cetera, that, you know, where there is or is not a need for us. And so, you know, oftentimes we're on those really salty, you know, really dry, arid climates and environments where, you know, it's really hard to reach that plateau, you know, and peak performance and sustain that, right? I tell people, if you think about like the algae population in the soil is like a threshold, right? And so like what we're trying to do is to, like, it's got downward pressures and then it's got consumption from the microbial population, so it's getting hit both sides, right? So the microbes are eating it from this side, and then, you know, our pressures from, you know, from our farming practices, from heat, from drought, you know, all those things are suppressing it from this angle, from the top down. And so what we're trying to do is just to help increase the population in the soil so it can actually continue replication in the soil. That's the idea, that we are seeding the soil with algae, because like, while you don't want it growing in your pipes, you absolutely want it growing in your soil. And so like the idea is that we're just seeding, you know, the soil so it can continue to grow. But I hope to be fired from a farm because like their soil's too good and they don't really need us anymore. But that's yet to happen. So let me see if I can do this appropriately. So the question was, how do you know that the algae aren't creating toxicities in the soil, and what tests do you go through to determine that? Is that appropriate? And frankly, I don't know the exact tests that they go through. I can tell you that we've changed algae a few times, but it's typically because of we're having some growth issues in those things. There's a vigorous testing process that our biologists go through. Happy to get your information and connect you, and like, you know, you can ask those questions of them. I don't know all of those that they go through, but yeah. One of the other questions that I get that's very close to that is like, hey, aren't you feeding the bad guys too in the soil? And so I'll save you guys and answer that one. It's kind of in line with that. Like, it's not necessarily creating toxicity. It's you know, asking about pathogenic bacteria or pathogenic fungi in the soil. Another one, if you want to nerd out on, look up Gauss's law, or the competitive exclusion principle. And so in healthy and robust soils, the good guys can outcompete. And oftentimes what we do is, you know, our human brains, we think that, you know, we can just wipe out all of the bad, and that we're not going to do anything to the good, or you're wiping out the good along with the bad. And sometimes that allows the bad to have some unfair advantages. And so if you've got, you know, if it's a true competitive landscape, and the good microbes are able to compete, you have less of those pressures. So that's another one if you want to get really nerdy and have some reading. That's Gauss's law, or competitive exclusion principle, is a good one to read up on as well. So great questions. And grab me after, and I'll connect you if you really want to know about the processes that they go through. I just don't know all of them on top of my head. Yeah, great question. And actually, that's one of the things, like earlier in the slides, because it's a service. One of the things that we do is work with the growers to, like, it's a service fee, so it incorporates straight into their annualized budgeting process. So rather than having a huge capital investment on the front end, we work with a lot of large banks that are interested in helping save the world, and so, you know, we're able to get financing to help finance the systems over their useful life, and then so we're able then to do it as a service fee to the growers, so on an annualized basis. So, and it's not a small investment. So you saw those systems. It's not small. Yes, sir. Anybody else?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.